The white envelope in my hand felt heavier than it should. Inside was the final guest count for my wedding. 217 people who would watch me marry the man I thought I knew. My sister Emma stood beside me in my living room, laughing at something on her phone, completely at ease. She had been my maid of honor for 3 months now, helping me choose flowers, taste cakes, and navigate the chaos of wedding planning. I trusted her with everything. But that afternoon, when her phone lit up on my kitchen counter, and I saw his name, David's name, followed by a heart emoji, something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger at first. It was confusion, a small crack in the foundation of everything I believed about the two people I loved most. If you or someone in your family has also experienced this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and tell us in the comments where you're listening to this story from. We'll post new stories every day. The morning light filtered through the curtains of my Boulder apartment, casting soft shadows across the wedding dress hanging on my closet door. In 6 days, I would wear that dress. In 6 days, I would become Mrs. Catherine Miller. The thought had always filled me with joy, but today, it sat uncomfortably in my chest like a stone I couldn't swallow. I had barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that message again. David's name, the heart emoji, Emma's phone screen glowing on my kitchen counter yesterday afternoon while she was in the bathroom. It had been just a glimpse, maybe 3 seconds before the screen went dark, but those 3 seconds had lodged themselves into my mind like a splinter I couldn't remove. I told myself I was overreacting. David and Emma had known each other for 2 years. Ever since he and I started dating, they were friendly. They texted sometimes about wedding details since she was my maid of honor. The heart emoji meant nothing. People use them casually these days. It was innocent, but my hands were shaking as I made coffee. David arrived at 10 in the morning, exactly when he said he would. He always kept his promises, always showed up on time, always kissed me on the forehead when he walked through the door. Today was no different. He smelled like the cologne I bought him for Christmas, and his smile was warm and familiar. "Ready for another day of wedding chaos?" he asked, setting his keys on the counter in the exact spot he always did. "Ready as I'll ever be," I said, forcing lightness into my voice. We were supposed to meet the florist at 11 to finalize the centerpieces. Emma was meeting us there. The thought of seeing them together made my stomach tighten, but I pushed it down. I needed to stop this. I needed to trust the people I loved. The drive to the florist took 20 minutes. David talked about work, about a difficult client, about plans for our honeymoon in Italy. I nodded and made the right sounds, but I wasn't really listening. I was watching his hands on the steering wheel, the way he checked his phone at a red light, the small smile that crossed his face when he read something. "Who's that?" I asked, keeping my tone casual. "Just Emma," he said, not looking up. "She's running 10 minutes late. Just Emma." The words echoed in my head. When we arrived at the flower shop, the owner greeted us with enthusiasm. Mrs. Patterson had been in the wedding business for 30 years, and she treated every bride like her own daughter. She led us to a back room where sample arrangements covered every surface: roses, peonies, hydrangeas in shades of white, and blush pink. "These are beautiful," I said, touching the soft petals of a garden rose. "Your sister helped me pick them out last week," Mrs. Patterson said with a smile. "She has wonderful taste. She knew exactly what you would love." Something cold moved through my chest. Emma was here last. Oh yes. She came by on Wednesday. She and your fiancé wanted to surprise you with some options. I looked at David. He was studying a vase of white tulips with too much focus. "You and Emma came here together?" I asked. He glanced up, his expression easy and unbothered. "Yeah. We wanted to narrow down the choices so you wouldn't be overwhelmed. You've been so stressed lately." "That was thoughtful," I said quietly, but it wasn't thoughtful. It was strange. David worked in downtown Denver, a 40-minute drive from Boulder. Emma lived on the opposite side of town. Why would they coordinate a trip to the florist without telling me? Why would they go out of their way to do something I never asked them to do? Emma arrived 15 minutes later, slightly breathless, her cheeks flushed from the cold November air. She hugged me tight, smelling like the vanilla perfume she always wore. "Sorry I'm late," she said. Traffic on Highway 36 was terrible. She greeted David with a casual wave. Nothing more, nothing less. They didn't exchange a look. They didn't stand too close. Everything appeared normal, but I couldn't stop watching them, searching for something I didn't want to find. We spent an hour looking at flowers. Emma was enthusiastic and helpful, pointing out combinations that would photograph well, asking questions about delivery times, making sure everything was perfect. She was being the perfect maid of honor, the perfect sister. "I think the garden roses with eucalyptus," she said, holding up a sample arrangement. "It's elegant but not too formal. Very you. Kath. She was the only person who called me that. When we were children, she couldn't pronounce Catherine, so it became Kath, and it stuck. It was a term of endearment, a mark of closeness. Hearing it now made my throat tight. "I trust your judgment," I said. We finalized the order. Mrs. Patterson promised everything would be delivered to the venue on Saturday morning. As we walked out of the shop, Emma linked her arm through mine. "Only 6 more days," she said, squeezing my arm. "Can you believe it?" "No," I said honestly. "I can't." David walked ahead of us to his car, his phone already in his hand. Emma's phone buzzed in her purse. She pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and smiled before putting it away. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah, just Mom confirming dinner plans for tomorrow night." We were all having dinner at my parents' house the next evening, final family gathering before the wedding. Another opportunity to watch them. Another chance to prove to myself that I was imagining things. David drove me home and kissed me goodbye at my door. "I'll see you tomorrow," he said. "Try to get some rest. You look tired." "I am tired," I admitted. After he left, I sat on my couch and stared at the wedding dress hanging across the room. 6 days. In 6 days, I would walk down an aisle toward a man I thought I knew. My sister would stand beside me, holding my bouquet, smoothing my veil, whispering encouragement, the picture of loyalty and love. But the image wouldn't stop playing in my mind. David's name on Emma's phone with a heart emoji. My phone rang. It was my mother. "Catherine, darling, I wanted to confirm tomorrow night. 6 o'clock. Your father is making his famous pot roast. I'll be there, Mom. And Emma's bringing dessert. She made that chocolate cake you love." Of course she did. Emma was always thoughtful, always kind, always perfect. After we hung up, I opened my laptop. I told myself I wouldn't do this. I told myself it was wrong, but my fingers were already typing before I could stop them. I opened David's cloud account. We had shared passwords for everything. Netflix, Amazon, utilities. He had nothing to hide. He had given me full access years ago. I clicked on his photos. Thousands of images loaded. Work events, dinners with friends on vacations we had taken together. I scrolled slowly, looking for something without knowing what I was looking for. And then I found it. A photo from 3 weeks ago. Emma and David at a coffee shop I didn't recognize. They were sitting across from each other, both smiling, both leaning in slightly. It looked friendly. It looked innocent. But I had never heard about this coffee meeting. Neither of them had mentioned it. I scrolled further. Another photo from 2 months ago. Emma and David at a park. She was laughing at something. Her head tilted back, her hand on his arm. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I kept scrolling. More photos. A hiking trail, a restaurant, a bookstore. All places I had never been to with either of them. All moments they had shared without me. The last photo was from 4 days ago. Emma sitting in David's car, the Boulder Flatirons visible through the window behind her. She was looking at the camera, at him, with an expression I recognized because I had worn it myself 1,000 times. It was the look of someone who felt safe, someone who felt seen. I closed the laptop. My hands were steady now. The confusion was gone. In its place was something cold and clear. I picked up my phone and texted Emma. "Can't wait for tomorrow night. Love you." She responded immediately with 3 heart emojis. I set my phone down and looked at the wedding dress again. The white fabric glowed softly in the afternoon light, pure and untouched, a symbol of something I no longer believed in. But I wouldn't cancel the wedding. I wouldn't confront them. Not yet. I would smile. I would plan. I would play the role of the excited bride and the trusting sister, because I needed to be certain. I needed to know how deep this went, and I needed them to believe I suspected nothing. The wedding was in 6 days. I had time. The next evening, I arrived at my parents' house in the foothills outside Boulder at exactly 6 o'clock. The November air was crisp and cold, carrying the scent of pine from the surrounding trees. My childhood home looked warm and inviting, golden light spilling from the windows, smoke curling from the chimney. This was the house where Emma and I had grown up, where we had shared a bedroom until I left for college, where we had whispered secrets late into the night and promised to always be there for each other. I sat in my car for a moment before going inside, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I had spent the entire day rehearsing how I would act. Natural, happy, unsuspecting. I couldn't let them see the storm building inside me. My mother opened the door before I could knock, pulling me into a tight embrace. She smelled like vanilla and cinnamon, the same comforting scent from my childhood. "There's my beautiful bride," she said, holding me at arm's length to look at me. "You're glowing, sweetheart." I wasn't glowing. I had barely slept in 2 nights, but I smiled and let her believe what she wanted to believe. Inside, the house was warm and filled with the rich aroma of pot roast. My father sat in his favorite chair by the fireplace, reading the newspaper. He looked up when I entered and gave me the same gentle smile he had given me my entire life. "There's my girl," he said, standing to hug me. "Ready for the big day?" "Getting there," I said, forcing lightness into my voice. Emma was already in the kitchen, helping our mother set the table. She wore a soft blue sweater that made her eyes look even brighter, her dark hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She looked up when I entered and grinned. "Kath, I was wondering when you'd get here. Come taste this cake. I tried a new recipe." She held out a fork with a piece of chocolate cake on it. I took it and put it in my mouth. It was rich and perfect, exactly the kind of dessert I loved. Emma had always known my preferences. She had, always paid attention to the small details that mattered. "It's amazing," I said honestly. "I'm so glad you like it. I wanted everything to be perfect for your last family dinner before you become a married woman." Her voice was warm and genuine. There was no hint of guilt, no shadow of discomfort. She moved around the kitchen with ease, laughing with our mother, teasing our father. She was the same Emma she had always been, kind, thoughtful, present. David arrived 20 minutes later, carrying a bottle of wine and a bouquet of flowers for my mother. He greeted everyone warmly, shook my father's hand, kissed my mother on the cheek. When he reached me, he wrapped his arms around my waist and kissed my temple. "Sorry I'm late. Meeting ran long." "It's okay," I said, studying his face for any sign of deception. There was nothing, just the same steady, reliable David I had fallen in love with 3 years ago. We sat down to dinner at the long wooden table that had hosted countless family meals. My mother had outdone herself. Pot roast with roasted vegetables, fresh bread, salad from the winter greens she grew in her greenhouse. Emma sat across from me, David to my right. We passed dishes and filled glasses, and the conversation flowed easily. My father told stories about his latest woodworking project. My mother talked about the book club she had joined. Emma shared a funny incident from her job at the elementary school where she taught 3rd grade. David discussed plans for expanding his architecture firm. Everyone was relaxed and happy. I watched them carefully. I watched the way Emma asked David about his work, the casual interest in her voice. I watched the way David complimented the cake Emma had made, the easy smile he gave her. I watched for lingering glances, for touches that lasted too long, for any crack in the performance. But there was nothing obvious. If I hadn't seen those photos, if I hadn't seen that message, I would have believed everything was normal. "Catherine, you've barely touched your food," my mother said, concern crossing her face. "Are you feeling all right?" "I'm fine, Mom. Just a little overwhelmed with everything. Wedding brain." "That's completely normal, sweetie," Emma said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "You've been working so hard to make everything perfect. After Saturday, you can finally relax." Her hand was warm on mine. Her eyes were full of sisterly concern. I squeezed back and smiled. "You're right. Only 5 more days." After dinner, Emma and I cleared the table while our mother prepared coffee. David and my father retreated to the living room to discuss something about foundation repairs for the house. We could hear their voices, low and easy, punctuated by my father's occasional laugh. Emma loaded dishes into the dishwasher with practiced efficiency. We had done this together hundreds of times growing up. She washed, I dried, or we traded off depending on the day. It was a comfortable rhythm, a shared language of sisters. "Need to tell you something," Emma said suddenly, her voice quiet. My heart stopped. This was it. She was going to confess. She was going to tell me the truth, and I wouldn't have to keep pretending. "What is it?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She closed the dishwasher and turned to face me, her expression serious. "I know I've been spending a lot of time on wedding stuff lately, and I just want you to know how much it means to me that you chose me as your maid of honor. Being your sister is the most important thing in my life, Kath. I would do anything for you. Anything." The words landed like stones in my chest. I searched her face for irony, for guilt, for any indication that she understood the cruelty of what she was saying. But there was nothing. She meant it, or she believed she meant it. "I know," I said softly. "You've been amazing through all of this." She hugged me tight, and I let her, feeling the familiar comfort of her embrace. This was the sister who had held me when my first boyfriend broke my heart. The sister who had driven 3 hours in a snowstorm to bring me soup when I had the flu. The sister who had helped me move into 5 different apartments and never complained once. How could this person also be the one sneaking around with my fiancé? "Emma," I said, pulling back slightly. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Anything. Have you been spending time with David lately, outside of wedding planning?" Her eyes didn't change. Her expression remained open and honest. "A little bit. He's been asking me for advice about you, actually. He wants to make sure he's doing everything right. He's so nervous about the wedding, about being a good husband. I think he's terrified of letting you down." It was a perfect answer. Reasonable, thoughtful, designed to make me feel guilty for questioning. "That's sweet of him," I said. "He really loves you, Kath. I've never seen someone so devoted. You're lucky to have found each other." My mother returned to the kitchen with coffee cups, and the subject changed. We moved back to the living room where my father had built up the fire. The 5 of us sat together in the warm glow, talking about the wedding schedule, discussing last-minute details, laughing at old family stories. At one point, Emma's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, smiled slightly, and typed a quick response. When she looked up, she caught me watching her. "Just confirming the hair appointment for Saturday morning," she said easily. "The stylist wanted to make sure we're still planning for 7. 7 is perfect," I said. David's phone buzzed a moment later. He pulled it out, read something, and put it away without responding. The timing could have been coincidence, but the small smile on his face was the same small smile Emma had worn seconds earlier. I excused myself to use the bathroom. Instead, I went upstairs to my old bedroom. It looked exactly as it had when I left for college 12 years ago. Twin beds with matching quilts, a bookshelf full of young adult novels, posters of bands Emma and I had loved as teenagers. So many memories lived in this room. So much history of 2 sisters who had been inseparable. I sat on my old bed and took out my phone. I opened David's cloud account again. New photos had been uploaded today. I clicked on them, my hands steady now. The first photo was from this morning. Emma in David's car again. She was laughing, holding a coffee cup, completely at ease. The second photo was from 2 days ago. Emma and David at the wedding venue. They were standing close together, looking at something on his phone. Her hand rested on his arm. The third photo was from a week ago. They were at a restaurant I recognized, an Italian place in downtown Denver, that David and I had talked about trying, but never made time for. Emma sat across from him, candlelight between them, both smiling. I closed my eyes and took a slow breath. The evidence was piling up, but it was still circumstantial. Photos of 2 people spending time together. Text messages I couldn't read. Smiles I couldn't interpret. Nothing concrete, nothing definitive. But my gut knew. That deep instinct that lives beneath logic and reason. It knew. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Emma appeared in the doorway, her expression concerned. "Hey, you okay? You've been up here for a while." "Yeah, just feeling nostalgic," I said, gesturing at the room. "Hard to believe this is where we used to stay up all night talking about our futures." She came and sat beside me on the bed, the mattress dipping under her weight. "I remember. You always said you wanted to get married in the fall, have 2 kids, and live in a house with a big backyard. Looks like you're getting everything you dreamed of. What about you?" I asked. "What did you dream of?" She was quiet for a moment, staring at the posters on the wall. I don't know. I guess I haven't figured that out yet. I'm still waiting for my life to really start. There was something in her voice, a loneliness I hadn't heard before. Or maybe I had never listened carefully enough. You have a great life, Em. You're an amazing teacher. The kids love you. Mom and Dad are so proud of you. I know, she said softly, but sometimes I wonder what it would be like to be chosen, to be someone's first choice, to be the person someone can't imagine living without. The words hung in the air between us. I wanted to ask her what she meant. I wanted to demand the truth, but I stayed quiet, letting her talk. You've always had that, she continued. Even when we were kids, you were the smart one, the accomplished one. You got into the best college. You landed the dream job. You found the perfect guy. Everything just works out for you, Kath. It always has. I heard the bitterness beneath her words, thin and sharp like ice cracking. That's not true, I said carefully. I've had plenty of failures and disappointments. Maybe, but you've never had to watch someone else get everything you wanted. The room felt suddenly smaller. The childhood memories, pressed in from all sides. Emma and me sharing clothes, sharing secrets, sharing everything. Two sisters who had promised to always support each other, no matter what. Emma, I said slowly, is there something you want to tell me? She looked at me, and for just a second, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt, fear, maybe even relief. But then it was gone, replaced by that same warm smile. Just that I love you, and I'm so happy for you. Saturday is going to be perfect. I promise. She hugged me again, and I let her, feeling the weight of everything unsaid between us. We went back downstairs. David was getting ready to leave. He kissed me goodbye and promised to call me tomorrow. Emma gathered her things, hugged our parents, and walked out to her car. Through the window, I watched her drive away, her taillights disappearing into the darkness. My mother came and stood beside me. Your sister adores you, you know. She would do anything to make sure you're happy. I know, Mom. But as I drove home that night, through the dark streets of Boulder with the mountains looming in the shadows, I understood something with perfect clarity. Emma believed she loved me. She believed she was being a good sister. But somewhere along the way, her envy had twisted into something else. Something that let her justify taking what wasn't hers. And David, steady, reliable David, had let it happen. Maybe he had even wanted it to happen. I didn't cry. The time for tears had passed. Instead, I felt a strange calm settle over me. In 5 days, I would walk down an aisle in a white dress. My sister would stand beside me as my maid of honor. My fiancé would wait for me at the altar, and everyone would watch as I said the words. I had practiced, but the words I would say wouldn't be the ones they were expecting. A pause in the story to ask you, are you enjoying this story so far? Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We'll post new stories every day. Thank you. Let's continue. The next 3 days passed in a strange blur of activity and silence. I moved through wedding preparations like an actress rehearsing a role I had memorized but longer believed in. I smiled at the right moments. I nodded when people asked if I was excited. I confirmed details with vendors, approved final payments, and responded to text messages with enthusiasm I didn't feel. But beneath the performance, I was watching, always watching. On Wednesday morning, Emma and I met at a bridal boutique to pick up my altered wedding dress. The seamstress had taken it in slightly at the waist and adjusted the hem to accommodate the heels I would wear. When I tried it on in the fitting room, Emma stood behind me, her eyes meeting mine in the mirror. You look like a princess, she said softly, adjusting the delicate lace sleeves. David is going to lose his breath when he sees you. I studied our reflections, two sisters who looked so much alike that strangers often asked if we were twins. Same dark hair, same green eyes, same small build. But Emma was softer somehow, more delicate. Where I was angular and precise, she was curved and gentle. Men had always noticed her first, been drawn to her warmth and easy laugh. Do you think he really loves me? I asked, watching her face carefully. Emma's hand stilled on my dress. Of course he does. Why would you ask that? Sometimes I wonder if I'm enough for him, if I give him everything he needs. She turned me around to face her, her expression serious. Catherine, you are more than enough. You're brilliant and beautiful and kind. Any man would be lucky to have you. David knows that." The words were perfect. Her tone was convincing, but her eyes slid away from mine just a fraction of a second too quickly. "You would tell me if something was wrong, wouldn't you?" I pressed. "If you thought I was making a mistake." "Of course I would. You're my sister. I would never let you walk into something that would hurt you." The irony of her words hung in the air between us, sharp and painful. That afternoon, I met David at our venue, a historic mansion in the Boulder foothills with views of the mountains. The coordinator walked us through the final timeline, explaining where everyone would stand, when the music would start, how the procession would work. David held my hand the entire time, attentive and engaged, asking questions about lighting and sound. "I want everything to be perfect for you," he said, as we walked through the garden where the ceremony would take place. "This is the most important day of our lives." "Is it?" I asked, stopping on the stone pathway. "The most important day?" He looked surprised by the question. "Of course. It's the day we commit to spending our lives together. The day we become a family." "What if I asked you to prove it?" I said quietly. "What if I needed you to show me that I'm the one you really want?" Something flickered across his face. Confusion. Maybe concern. "Catherine, where is this coming from? You know how I feel about you. I've never hidden my feelings. Haven't you?" The words came out sharper than I intended. David's expression shifted, became more guarded. "What are you really asking me?" I looked at him. This man I had planned to spend my life with. His familiar face, his steady presence, his reliable routines. I had thought I knew him completely. I had thought there were no secrets between us. "I'm asking if there's anything you need to tell me before Saturday. Anything at all." He held my gaze for a long moment. I watched for guilt, for fear, for any crack in his composure, but his expression remained steady. "There's nothing," he said firmly. "Catherine, you're the only person I want, the only person I've ever wanted since the day we met. If you're having doubts, we can talk about them. We can work through anything together." It was another perfect answer. Calm, reassuring, designed to make me feel foolish for questioning. "I'm not having doubts," I lied. "Just wedding nerves." He pulled me into his arms, and I let him hold me, feeling the solid warmth of his chest against my cheek. But even as he whispered reassurances, even as he stroked my hair and promised everything would be wonderful, I felt the distance between us growing wider. That evening, I did something I had never done before. I drove to Emma's apartment unannounced. She lived in a small complex near the elementary school where she taught, a cozy one-bedroom she had decorated with plants and vintage furniture. I had been there dozens of times, always welcomed with tea and conversation. I knocked on her door at 7 o'clock. When she opened it, surprise crossed her face, quickly replaced by pleasure. "Kath, I wasn't expecting you. Come in, come in. I was just making dinner. Are you hungry?" Her apartment smelled like garlic and tomatoes. A pot simmered on the stove. Music played softly from a speaker. Everything looked normal and domestic and innocent. "I can't stay long," I said, following her into the small kitchen. "I just wanted to see you. Is everything okay? You seem tense." I watched her stir the pot, her movements easy and practiced. "Do you remember when we were kids and we made that promise to always tell each other the truth? No matter what?" She glanced up, her expression curious. "Of course. We were what? 10 and 12. We cut our palms and pressed them together like they did in that movie. Mom was furious about the knife. We promised we would never lie to each other, that we would always be honest, even if the truth was hard." Emma set down the spoon and turned to face me fully. "We did, and I've kept that promise. Kath, I've never lied to you about anything important." "Nothing important?" "Nothing at all." I pulled out my phone and opened the photos I had been collecting. I held it out to her, showing her the first image, her and David at the coffee shop. "When was this taken?" I asked calmly. The color drained from her face. She stared at the photo, then at me, her mouth opening and closing without sound. "I can explain," she finally said. "Can you? Because I have more." I swiped to the next photo. The restaurant, then the park, then her sitting in his car. "This is a lot of time spent together. A lot of moments you never mentioned." Emma's hands were shaking. She sat down heavily at her small kitchen table, looking suddenly fragile. It's not what you think. What is it then? Help me understand. She was quiet for a long time, her fingers twisting together in her lap. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. He asked me to help him plan a surprise. For you. Something special for after the wedding. He wanted my advice because I know you better than anyone. That's all it was. Kath, I swear. It was a reasonable explanation. It could have even been true, but her eyes were filled with tears, and her voice shook, and I knew she was lying. What kind of surprise requires secret meetings at romantic restaurants? I asked quietly. What kind of surprise involves spending hours together without telling me? It's not romantic. It was never romantic. He loves you. We both love you. Do you? The question hung in the air, heavy and terrible, because I don't think people who love someone do what you've been doing. I don't think they sneak around and lie and hide things. Emma stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You don't understand. You've never understood what it's like to be me. To always be second. To watch you get everything while I get the leftovers. There it was. The truth beneath all the lies. The resentment she had been hiding behind sisterly smiles and helpful gestures. So you decided to take David, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. You decided that was fair? I didn't take anything, she said, but her voice cracked. He came to me. He talked to me. He saw me in a way no one ever has. And maybe, just for a little while, I let myself believe that someone could choose me first, instead of settling for what you didn't want. The words hit like physical blows. I stood there in her small kitchen, surrounded by the smell of dinner and the soft music, and felt everything I had believed about my sister crumble into dust. I never gave you leftovers, Emma. I never thought of you as second. You were my best friend, my person, the one I trusted most in the world. Until you didn't, she said bitterly. Until you suspected and came here with your evidence and your accusations. I suspected because you gave me reasons to suspect. Because you've been lying to me for weeks, maybe months. Because my fiancé has been spending more time with you than with me. Emma's face crumpled. She covered it with her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Kath. I never meant for this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you. But she had hurt me. She had made choices, taken actions, built a secret relationship with the man I was supposed to marry. And now, 3 days before my wedding, everything was falling apart. Has anything happened between you? I asked, needing to know the full truth. Have you crossed lines you can't uncross? She looked up. At me, tears streaming down her face. No, nothing physical. I swear to you. We've just talked. We've just spent time together. But I know I should have told you. I know it was wrong. I didn't know if I believed her. I didn't know if it mattered. The emotional betrayal was already complete. Whether they had kissed or not, whether they had shared more than conversations, it didn't change the fundamental truth that they had both chosen to hide something from me. They had both prioritized their connection over my trust. What happens now? Emma asked, her voice small and broken. Are you going to cancel the wedding? I looked at my sister, this person I had known my entire life, this person I had thought I understood completely. She looked young and scared and guilty, waiting for me to decide her fate. I don't know, I said honestly. I need time to think. I walked toward the door. Emma followed me, reaching for my arm. Please don't hate me, she begged. Please, Kath. You're all I have. I can't lose you. I gently removed her hand from my arm. You should have thought about that before. I left her apartment and sat in my car for a long time, watching lights turn on in windows, watching people come home from work, watching the ordinary flow of life continue around me while mine imploded. My phone buzzed. A text from David. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Rehearsal dinner at 6. I love you. I stared at the words. 3 simple sentences that should have filled me with warmth and anticipation. Instead, they felt like stones sinking in deep water. I drove home through the dark streets, past shops decorated for the upcoming holidays, past couples walking hand in hand, past all the normal happiness I had thought would be mine. When I got to my apartment, I looked at the wedding dress hanging in its protective bag. In 2 days, I was supposed to wear that dress. In 2 days, I was supposed to stand in front of everyone I knew and promise forever to a man who had been lying to me. But I had a different plan now. A plan that had been forming in the quiet spaces between conversations. In the moments of watching them pretend everything was normal. I would go through with the wedding. I would walk down that aisle. I would stand at that altar with Emma beside me as my maid of honor and David waiting for me as my groom. And then, when everyone was watching, when there was no escape and no way to hide, I would tell them the truth, not with anger or drama, but with calm, clear words that would expose exactly what they had done. They wanted a wedding. They would get one, just not the one they were expecting. The rehearsal dinner took place at a restaurant overlooking Boulder Creek, the kind of place with exposed brick walls and soft lighting that made everything look romantic and perfect. 45 people had gathered. Close family, the wedding party, a few dear friends who had traveled from out of state. Everyone was in high spirits, laughing and toasting, celebrating the union that would take place following evening. I arrived early with my parents. My mother wore a navy dress she had bought specifically for the occasion, and my father looked uncomfortable but proud in his suit. They kept touching my shoulders, squeezing my hands, radiating joy that their oldest daughter was about to marry a good man. "You seem calm," my mother observed, as we waited for the others to arrive. I was a nervous wreck before my wedding. I couldn't eat for 3 days. "I feel strangely peaceful," I said, which was true in a way she couldn't understand. David arrived moments later, his best man and groomsmen following behind. He looked handsome in a dark suit, his hair freshly cut, his smile bright and easy. When he saw me, he crossed the room immediately and kissed my cheek. "There's my beautiful bride," he said loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "One more day and you'll be stuck with me forever." "Forever," I repeated, holding his gaze. "That's a long time." "Not long enough," he said, pulling me close. I let him hold me, feeling the weight of his arms around my waist. To everyone watching, we looked like the perfect couple, in love, committed, ready to start our life together. No one could see the calculation in my mind, the careful plan I had been constructing piece by piece. Emma arrived 15 minutes later, slightly breathless and apologizing for being delayed. She wore a burgundy dress that complemented her dark hair, and she had clearly taken extra care with her appearance. Her eyes found mine across the room, filled with apprehension and pleading. I smiled at her, a real smile, warm and welcoming. I crossed the room and hugged her tight. "You look beautiful," I said into her ear. "Thank you for being here." She pulled back, confusion and relief warring on her face. "Kath, Not tonight," I interrupted gently. "Tonight is about celebrating. We can talk about everything else later." She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "Okay, later." The relief in her expression was palpable. She thought I had forgiven her. She thought my calm demeanor meant I had decided to overlook everything, to choose family harmony over confrontation. She had no idea that my peace came from knowing exactly what I was going to do. David appeared at my side, greeting Emma with easy familiarity. "Emma, you made it. Catherine was worried you'd miss the rehearsal." "I wouldn't miss it for anything," she said, her voice steady now. "This is too important." They looked at each other for just a moment, barely a second. Nothing anyone else would notice. But I saw it, the shared secret, the mutual understanding, the connection they thought they had hidden from me. "Come on," I said brightly. "Let's get started. The coordinator wants to run through everything before dinner." We moved to the private room the restaurant had reserved for us. The wedding coordinator, a efficient woman named Patricia, gathered everyone around a floor plan she had taped to a wall. She walked us through the ceremony step by step, explaining where everyone would stand, when they would walk, what cues to listen for. "Emma, as maid of honor, you'll walk down first," Patricia explained. "Then, the flower girl, that's your niece Sarah, correct? Then Catherine with her father. David, you'll be waiting at the altar with your best man. Everyone understand?" We nodded. We practiced the procession 3 times, walking through an imaginary aisle, standing in designated spots. Emma stood where she would stand tomorrow, right beside where I would be. David stood across from us, his hands clasped in front of him, his expression serious and focused. "Perfect," Patricia declared. "Now, when the officiant asks if anyone objects to the union, There will be a pause. Catherine, David, this is when you'll look at each other. Hold that look for about 3 seconds, then nod to the officiant to continue. What if someone actually objects? My cousin Jake called out, laughing. Has that ever really happened? Rarely, Patricia said with a tight smile. But if it does, we handle it gracefully and move forward. I caught Emma's eye. She was watching me with that same apprehensive expression, worried I might say something, might ruin this moment. I gave her a reassuring smile. After the rehearsal, we gathered at long tables for dinner. I sat between David and my father, Emma directly across from me. The food came in courses, salads, then pasta, then salmon with roasted vegetables. Wine flowed freely. People gave toasts. David's best man, Marcus, stood and raised his glass. I've known David for 15 years, since we were college roommates. I've seen him date a lot of women, but I've never seen him as happy as he is with Catherine. She's smart, accomplished, beautiful, basically too good for him. Everyone laughed. David grinned and shook his head. But seriously, Marcus continued, you two are perfect together. You balance each other. You bring out the best in each other. I'm honored to stand beside you tomorrow as you start this new chapter. Glasses clinked. People cheered. David squeezed my hand under the table. My father stood next, his voice thick with emotion. And Catherine has been the joy of my life since the day she was born. Watching her grow into the woman she is today has been my greatest privilege. David, I'm trusting you with my most precious treasure. Take care of her. Honor her. Love her the way she deserves to be loved. More clinking glasses. My mother wiped tears from her eyes. Emma looked down at her plate, her jaw tight. Then Emma stood. The room quieted, all eyes turning to her. She held her wine glass, her hand trembling slightly. I'm not good at public speaking, she began, her voice soft. But I need to say something about my sister. Catherine has been my hero my entire life. She's brilliant and brave and kind. She's always known exactly what she wanted and how to get it. She's never settled for less than she deserves. She paused, swallowing hard. Her eyes met mine across the table. And David, you're getting the best person I know. She'll be loyal and honest and true. She'll expect the same from you. She'll trust you completely until you give her a reason not to. The words hung in the air, weighted with meaning only the three of us understood. David shifted in his seat. I maintained my calm expression, my gentle smile. So my toast is this, Emma continued, her voice stronger now. May your marriage be built on honesty. May you always choose each other first. And may you never take for granted the trust you're being given. She raised her glass. Everyone joined her, drinking to a marriage built on honesty, not knowing how deeply the irony cut. After dinner, people mingled. David's relatives wanted photos. My college friends pulled me aside to ask about the honeymoon. Emma helped my mother coordinate last-minute details about tomorrow's flower. Delivery. Everything flowed smoothly. Everyone playing their assigned roles in this production we called a wedding. Later, when the crowd had thinned and only close family remained, David pulled me outside to the restaurant's patio. The November night was cold and clear, stars visible above the city lights. He wrapped his jacket around my shoulders and held me close. Tomorrow night, we'll be married, he said quietly. Can you believe it? No, I said honestly. It doesn't feel real. Are you happy, Catherine? Really happy. I looked up at him, this man who had been my partner for 3 years, who had seemed so perfect and steady and right. Are you? Of course. Why would you ask? Because marriage is forever. Because once we say those vows, there's no going back. Because I need to know that you're absolutely certain I'm the one you want. He cupped my face in his hands, his expression earnest. You are the one I want. You're the only one I've ever wanted. But even as he said the words, even as he kissed me with apparent tenderness, I felt the lie between us. Not just his lie, but my lie too. The secret I was keeping about what I knew, what I had discovered, what I planned to do. I should tell you something, I said suddenly, surprising myself. His hand stilled. What is it? I almost told him everything in that moment. Almost laid out all the evidence, all the photos, all the secret meetings. Almost gave him the chance to confess, to apologize, to possibly save what remained of our relationship. But then I remembered Emma's words at her apartment. He came to me. He talked to me. He saw me. I remembered the photos of them laughing together, sitting close together, sharing moments I knew nothing about. I remembered 3 years of planning a future with someone who had been building a different connection behind my back. Just that I hope tomorrow is everything we both deserve, I said finally. Relief crossed his face so quickly I almost missed it. It will be, I promise. We went back inside. I said goodnight to my parents, to Emma, to all the guests who would witness tomorrow's ceremony. Everyone hugged me, wished me well, told me to get rest for the big day. Emma caught me at the door. Kath, can we talk? Just for a minute. Not tonight, Em. I'm exhausted. Please, I need you to know that Tomorrow, I said firmly. We'll have plenty of time to talk after the wedding. She nodded, accepting the delay, believing she had been granted a reprieve. I drove home alone, through streets I had driven 1,000 times, past buildings, and parks and shops that had formed the backdrop of my life in Boulder. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, I would walk down an aisle in front of everyone I knew. Tomorrow, the truth would finally come out. At home, I hung David's jacket in my closet and looked at the wedding dress one more time. It was beautiful. Everything I had dreamed of when I was a little girl playing bride with Emma in our bedroom. We had taken turns, wearing our mother's veil, promising we would be each other's maid of honor someday, swearing we would never let anything come between us. But life wasn't a childhood game. People lied. People betrayed. People chose themselves over the ones they claimed to love. I picked up my phone and opened the Notes app. I had been writing and rewriting what I would say at the altar, editing and refining until every word was exactly right. Not angry or vengeful, just honest, clear, true. Tomorrow, standing in front of everyone who loved us, I would finally speak the truth I had been holding inside, not to humiliate them, though that would be the inevitable result, not to seek revenge, though some might see it that way, but to free myself, to choose honesty over comfort, to refuse to start a marriage built on lies. I read through my words one more time, then set my phone aside. As my hands were steady, my heart was calm. I knew exactly what I needed to do. A pause in the story to remind you to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're listening to this story from. We'll post new stories every day. Thank you. Let's continue. The morning of my wedding day arrived with cloudless blue skies and the kind of crisp November air that made everything feel sharp and clear. I woke at 5:30, not from an alarm, but from the quiet certainty that today was the day everything would finally resolve. I made coffee and sat by my window, watching the sun rise over the Flatirons. The mountains glowed pink and gold in the early light, solid and unchanging while everything else in my life shifted beneath my feet. I thought about calling someone, my mother, a friend, anyone who might talk me out of what I was about to do. But I didn't reach for my phone. This decision belonged to me alone. At 7 o'clock, Emma arrived with our hairstylist. She knocked softly, calling my name through the door. When I opened it, she looked tired and anxious, dark circles under her eyes suggesting she had slept as poorly as I had. "Good morning," I said, pulling her into a hug. "Ready to make me beautiful?" She searched my face, looking for anger or coldness. Finding neither, she relaxed slightly. "You're already beautiful, Kath. I'm just here to enhance what's already there." The stylist set up in my bathroom, laying out curling irons and hairspray and an array of products. Emma sat beside me as my hair was pulled and pinned into an elaborate updo, small flowers woven throughout. She watched my reflection in the mirror, and I watched hers. "I couldn't sleep last night," she admitted, quietly while the stylist worked. "I kept thinking about everything." "Me too," I said honestly. "Are we okay?" "I need to know we're okay." I reached for her hand and squeezed it. Today is about moving forward, about truth and honesty and choosing what's right. She squeezed back, misunderstanding my words as forgiveness. "I'm so glad. I was terrified I had ruined everything between us." "You could never ruin us," I said. Which was both true and false. She hadn't ruined the bond we shared. She had simply revealed that it had never been what I thought it was. My mother arrived at 9 with breakfast, pastries from my favorite bakery, fresh fruit, orange juice. She bustled around my apartment, radiating nervous energy and maternal joy. "My baby is getting married," she kept saying, tears pooling in her eyes. I can't believe my baby is getting married. We ate together, the three of us, 3 generations of women in my small living room, talking about inconsequential things while the clock ticked steadily toward the ceremony. My mother told stories about her own wedding day, the disasters that had been averted, the moments that had gone perfectly. Emma laughed at the right times and asked the right questions, playing her part flawlessly. At 11, the photographer arrived. She was a cheerful woman named Stephanie who specialized in capturing authentic moments. She posed us in various configurations. Me alone in my robe, me with my mother, me with Emma. The camera clicked constantly, preserving images of what everyone believed was pure happiness. Can you two look at each other? Stephanie asked Emma and me. I want to capture the sisterly bond. We turned toward each other. Emma's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Mine were calm and clear. Beautiful, Stephanie murmured. The love between you is so evident. At noon, I put on the wedding dress. My mother and Emma helped me, carefully pulling the delicate fabric over my styled hair, fastening the tiny buttons that ran down my spine. When I was fully dressed, they stepped back to look at me. Oh, Catherine, my mother whispered, her hand over her mouth. You're absolutely stunning. Emma said nothing, but tears streamed down her face. She looked at me with something that might have been love, or might have been grief, or might have been guilt. Perhaps all 3 at once. Don't cry, I said gently, dabbing at her cheeks with a tissue. You'll ruin your makeup. I can't help it, she said, her voice breaking. You're so beautiful and I'm so proud to be your sister. The words should have warmed me. Instead, they felt like stones dropping into a deep well, disappearing into darkness. We loaded into cars at 1 o'clock. The ceremony was scheduled for 2. The venue was 20 minutes away through winding mountain roads lined with golden aspens. Emma rode with me and my father in one car, my mother following behind with my aunt and cousins. My father reached back and patted my hand. Nervous? No, I said. I know exactly what I need to. He smiled, interpreting my certainty as bridal confidence. That's my girl, always so sure of herself. When we arrived at the venue, guests were already gathering, 217 people, just as the final count had indicated. They milled around the garden where white chairs had been arranged in neat rows, an aisle runner stretching between them toward an arch covered in roses and eucalyptus. The arrangement Emma had helped choose. I was taken to a private suite to wait. Through the windows, I could see guests finding their seats, the string quartet warming up, David standing at the altar with Marcus beside him. He looked handsome and nervous, checking his watch, adjusting his tie, scanning the crowd. Emma stood with me, adjusting my veil one more time, making sure every detail was perfect. 5 minutes, she said softly. Are you ready? I've never been more ready for anything in my life. The music began. Emma hugged me one final time, then stepped out to take her place in the procession. I watched through the doorway as she walked down the aisle, her burgundy dress flowing behind her, her bouquet held carefully in front of her. She took her position to the left of the altar, exactly where Patricia had indicated during rehearsal. My flower girl niece scattered petals down the aisle, delighting the guests with her careful concentration. Then it was my turn. My father offered his arm, ready to become Mrs. David Miller. Let's go, I said. The doors opened fully. The music swelled into the traditional wedding march. Every head turned to look at me. I saw faces I had known my entire life. Relatives, friends, colleagues, neighbors, all of them smiling, some crying, all of them believing they were witnessing a beautiful beginning. I walked slowly, maintaining the measured pace the coordinator had drilled into us. My father's arm was steady under my hand. The aisle seemed impossibly long and yet not long enough. With each step, I felt my resolve solidify into something unbreakable. David watched me approach, his expression caught between awe and nervousness. Emma stood beside the altar, her eyes fixed on me, her face pale. They looked at each other for just a moment, quick, almost imperceptible, and in that glance, I saw everything. The connection, the secret, the betrayal they had convinced themselves was justified. I reached the altar. My father kissed my cheek and placed my hand in David's. David's palm was sweaty against mine. He leaned close and whispered, "You're so beautiful." I I didn't respond. The officiant, a kind older man named Pastor Roberts, who had known my family for years, began to speak. He talked about love and commitment, about the sacred bond of marriage, about two people choosing to walk through life together. His words washed over the gathered crowd like a blessing. "We are here today," he intoned, "to witness the union of Catherine and David. Marriage is not to be entered into lightly, but with full understanding of its sacred nature." Emma stood 3 feet from me, holding my bouquet as rehearsed. I could feel her tension, her worry that I might still say something, might still reveal what I knew. "If anyone here knows of any reason why these two should not be joined in marriage," Pastor Roberts continued, "speak now or forever hold your peace." The traditional pause followed. The silence stretched. People shifted in their seats. David and I were supposed to look at each other during this moment, supposed to smile at the formality of it. Instead, I turned to face the crowd. "I do," I said clearly. "I have something to say." The silence deepened. Every eye fixed on me. David's hand tightened on mine in warning. Emma made a small sound of distress. Pastor Roberts looked confused. "Catherine?" David whispered urgently. "What are you doing?" I gently removed my hand from his and took a step forward, addressing the crowd that had gathered to celebrate what they believed was love. "I need to tell you all something," I began, my voice steady and clear, "because I can't stand at this altar and make promises built on lies. I can't start a marriage by pretending I don't know the truth." My mother stood up, her face stricken. "Catherine, sweetheart. Please, Mom, let me finish." I turned to look at David, then at Emma. 3 weeks ago, I discovered that my fiancé and my sister have been spending time together. Secret time. They've met for coffee, for meals, for long conversations I knew nothing about. They've shared things they never told me. They've built a connection that exists completely separate from me. Gasps rippled through the crowd. David's face went white. Emma stood frozen, her hands clutching my bouquet so tightly her knuckles were bloodless. "When I found out," I continued, "I could have confronted them immediately. I could have canceled this wedding. But I wanted to understand. I wanted to see if they would tell me the truth on their own, if they would choose honesty over comfort." "Catherine, please," David said, his voice breaking. "This isn't what you think." "Then what is it?" I asked, turning to face him fully. "Tell everyone here what it is. Explain why you've been meeting my sister behind my back. Explain why you both lied to me repeatedly. Explain why, if everything was innocent, you both worked so hard to hide it." He couldn't answer. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. I looked at Emma. Tears streamed down her face, but she remained silent, trapped by her own guilt. "I want to thank you all for coming today," I said, addressing the crowd again. "I know many of you traveled far to be here. I'm sorry you won't see the wedding you expected, but I've learned something important these past few weeks. I've learned that love without trust is just performance, that commitment without honesty is just obligation, that I deserve a partner who chooses me openly, not secretly wishes for someone else." My father had tears in his eyes. My mother looked devastated, but I also saw understanding beginning to dawn on their faces, comprehension of what I had been carrying alone. "David," I said, turning to him one final time, "I release you from any promises you made to me. I hope you find what you're looking for. I hope it makes you happy." I looked at Emma, the sister I had loved and trusted my entire life. "And I forgive you. Not because what you did was okay, but because I need to let go of this anger so it doesn't destroy me. But I can't pretend nothing has changed between us. I can't stand beside you and act like trust can be rebuilt overnight." I reached up and removed the veil from my hair, carefully extracting the pins Emma had placed so lovingly that morning. I folded it and set it on the altar beside Pastor Roberts. "I'm choosing honesty," I said simply. "I'm choosing truth over comfort. I'm choosing myself." Then I turned and walked back down the aisle, not running, not fleeing, but walking with measured dignity through the silence. People parted to let me pass. Some reached out to touch my arm in support. Others looked away, embarrassed by the spectacle. I reached the garden gate and kept walking, through the parking lot, past the cars decorated with ribbons, toward the road. I heard my father calling my name, heard my mother's voice raised in confusion and concern, but I didn't. Stop. I walked for half a mile before my father's car pulled up beside me. He rolled down the window. Get in, Catherine. I climbed into the passenger seat. He didn't speak, just drove slowly away from the venue, away from the chaos I had left behind. We drove in silence for 10 minutes, before he finally pulled over at a scenic overlook. We sat looking at the mountains, those ancient peaks that had stood long before this day and would stand long after. I'm proud of you, my father said finally. That took more courage than going through with it would have. Everyone thinks I'm crazy, I said quietly. Everyone thinks I humiliated them for no reason. Maybe some do, but you know what you saw. You know what they did, and you chose your dignity over their comfort. He reached over and took my hand. That's not crazy. That's brave. We sat there as the afternoon light shifted across the valley, and slowly, the adrenaline that had carried me through the ceremony began to fade. In its place came a strange mixture of grief and relief. Grief for what I had lost, the relationship I thought I had, the sister I thought I knew, the future I had planned, but also relief that I had finally spoken the truth, that I had refused to build a life on a foundation of lies. My phone buzzed constantly, text messages pouring in, some supportive, some angry, some confused. I turned it off. What do I do now? I asked my father. Now, he smiled gently. Now you live your life. You heal. You find out who you are without them. You discover that you're stronger than you thought. Over the following days, I learned who my real friends were. Some people called me dramatic, said I should have handled it privately, accused me of seeking attention, but others, the ones who mattered, reached out with support. They told me stories of their own betrayals, their own moments of choosing truth over comfort. David sent me a long email 3 days later. He apologized, explained, tried to justify. He claimed nothing physical had happened between him and Emma, that they had just been talking, that he had been confused about his feelings. He said he had loved me, but also felt drawn to Emma in ways he didn't understand. He asked if we could talk, if there was any way to fix what had broken. I deleted the email without responding. Emma showed up at my apartment a week later. I let her in because she was still my sister, because some bonds can't be completely severed even when they're damaged. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said, sitting on my couch where we had sat together hundreds of times. I don't even forgive myself, but I need you to know that I never meant for any of this to happen. I never set out to hurt you, but you did hurt me, I said simply. Intentions don't erase impact. I know. She broke down, crying in a way I had never seen her cry before. I was jealous. I've been jealous of you my whole life. And when David started talking to me, confiding in me, I let myself believe I deserved that. Attention. I let myself forget that he was yours first. He was never mine, I said quietly. You can't own people, but he made promises to me. And you made promises to me too. Promises about loyalty and honesty and sisterhood. You both broke those promises. We talked for 2 hours, not to repair what was broken. That would take months, maybe years, maybe forever. But to acknowledge the truth of what had happened. To stop, pretending and performing and hiding. When she left, we didn't hug, but we looked at each other with something approaching understanding. 3 months later, I moved to a new apartment on the other side of Boulder. I changed jobs, started therapy, began the work of rebuilding myself from the ground up. Some days were hard. Some days I doubted my decision, wondered if I should have handled things differently, questioned whether standing up for myself had been worth the cost. But then, I would remember that moment at the altar, that choice to speak truth instead of swallowing lies. I would remember walking away with my dignity intact, refusing to start a marriage by pretending I didn't know what I knew, and on those days, I felt strong. My comeback wasn't the dramatic confrontation at the altar, though everyone else seemed to think it was. My comeback wasn't exposing their betrayal in front of 200 people, though that was part of it. My real comeback was choosing myself. It was deciding that my peace mattered more than their comfort. It was walking away from a life built on lies toward an uncertain future built on truth. I didn't know yet what that future would hold. I didn't know if I would ever trust someone enough to try again. I didn't know if Emma and I would ever rebuild what we had lost. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I would never again pretend I didn't see the truth just to keep the peace. I would never again make myself small to make others comfortable. I would never again choose performance over authenticity. That day at the altar, in my white dress surrounded by flowers and music and expectations, I had finally chosen myself, and that choice, that single moment of courage, had set me free.